Diksha is an award-winning artist, musician, and fashion designer with El Zorro Store. She practices and teaches yoga and volunteers for the animals with the Bhopal Animal Save Movement, and she's speaking with us all the way from India. Thank you so much for taking this time.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, our mutual friend Erin has just sung your praises. And so I'm really excited to learn about all the many talented things that you're involved with. But first of all, I'd like to know about how did you find the vegan path? Were you raised vegan or how did that happen for you?
Yeah, so I was raised vegetarian, and I did not know about the cruelty in dairy because it's very actively hidden by everybody from us. That's something I realized recently. So my family has always been vegetarian. My brother eats meat and wanted to explore eating meat. I tried one piece of chicken and one piece of fish to see what it tasted like when I was 10 years old, but that's about all the meat I've ever consumed. Um, I never liked dairy as a child. My mom had to chase me around her garden to feed me milk, and and I was a skinny child, so people used to make her feel like a bad mother for not having a fat, healthy baby. So she thought it was her duty to fatten me up by feeding me all these dairy products like butter and cheese and ghee. And these were things somehow that I naturally did not like as a child, but I was sort of conditioned to. So by the time I grew up, I was addicted to dairy. I would put butter in everything. I couldn't imagine having a piece of toast without butter. I started loving cheese. And in fact, just before turning vegan, my dairy consumption had risen a lot, actually. I was living by myself with my partner and working, and we would just buy like humongous packets of cheese and just, consume it, too much of it, honestly. And I didn't know about it. I met a couple of my mom's friends had turned vegan, and I met them when they were around 5, 6 years ago, or even before that when they initially turned vegan. And I didn't realize why they turned vegan because they didn't really clarify or say anything about it. They just said, "Okay, we're vegan, and that's it." So later, when I started working with khadi, which is a traditional Indian hand spun fabric, I sort of fell in love with this fabric because it was just lying there collecting dust in a government building. And I felt like it deserved more because every thread had been spun by hand and it was beautiful. It has huge potential for generating clean employment at village levels that could eventually, hopefully, reduce the migrations that happen from village to cities in search of work and in search of revenue. So as a young child, I always was concerned about the environment a lot. I cared about all animals. I hated the thought of zoos. I hated the thought of people, having fish in tanks and anything. I didn't like any of that. I knew that was wrong. But again, what happens in dairy was never something that was clear to me. And then because of the environmental aspect of it, I got into khadi. It seemed like the perfect thing for me. It allowed me to explore my creativity. It allowed me to do some good for the artisans that need help. And it allowed me to do something that's good for the environment and support a sustainable fabric. So it was doing some research with how much water consumption goes into cotton production, that I came across how much water consumption happens in animal farming, including dairy. And that sort of took me to that down that rabbit hole where I started reading everything that I could find on this, and I realized that I was supporting a very unsustainable thing by supporting dairy. And then I found out about the cruelty in dairy, and I was like, it said that dairy is more cruel than meat, and I was like, how's that possible? Because it doesn't. That's how it's marketed to you, that no, this is fine, and if you're a vegetarian, you're still doing enough. And then I found out about everything, and I got really angry because I don't like lies, and I felt like I was being lied to. And as a As a person who's younger, you believe that people who are making decisions on a broader level, people who are sort of ruling everybody's lives, are making those decisions based on some logic or some science or some fact or some, there must be some reason that animals have to die to feed people, or that. And then when I realized that all of those were lies, I got even more angry, and I was like, we're living in a terrible world. And so I got really angry. Then I thought, okay, what's the point of being angry? Let me try and do something nice about it. So because I love food, I started making my own alternatives. I went home, I told them, stop paying for the dairy that you consume, give me the money and I will make the alternatives for you. I'm making it for myself. I constantly experiment in the kitchen to come up with new things, and I make vegan ice creams and cheese and butter using different nuts and everything, and I just send it home. So, and I try to at parties that are happening around me and say, okay, I'll bring the food and I'll make the cake, and I just educate people like that through delicious food, because and also logic. Like, there are people who'll get into arguments with me about everything from protein to B12 to, and I love knowing stuff, so I read a lot about all of this, so I feel like I'm capable of handling those questions, and I really enjoy making the world a better place slowly. So that's something I want to do with my life, and that's what I want to dedicate my life to: creating beautiful things and making the planet a nicer place. So that's
Nice,
this
nice.
sort
Well,
of brings it. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the least we can do is the least harm, right? Is to when we find
Exactly.
out
Yes.
that there's these things that are harmful, that the
Yes.
mothers grieve for their babies, and
Yes.
that and that the baby cows have to go to slaughter because we take their milk and all of that. And you're right, it's hidden
Yeah.
from us, and
Yeah.
for no other reason than profit, really, I think. But it's a
Exactly.
little bit different where you are, I think, because
Mm.
traditionally, Ayurvedic, I think, depends a lot on is it pronounced, we pronounce it ghee, is that right?
Yes.
So
Ghee.
it's considered,
It has more of an H sound. Yes. Yeah.
and it's
Ghee.
considered, it's
Yeah.
ghee. It's considered medicinal. So how do you get around that? Like that, I think would be a big wall that would go up for people.
Yeah. Actually, I'll tell you something funny about all of this. The thing is that nobody has. I mean, most 99% of people have not read the Ayurveda themselves. Yeah, so we depend on other people's translations, and not just literal translations, but other people's feelings and thoughts and how they perceive it and what's their agenda in selling us this. So, and dairy in India used to be very different. When people say that, oh, in times of Krishna or in ancient times, people used to have dairy. They didn't have factory farms, first of all. Secondly, the cattle was taken care of. The males were not killed because they were used for farming. And I'm not saying that's okay, but in those times, that's what happened, and that's not something that's sustainable now. That's not something that's even needed. The problem is that we are told that it is needed, that you need to have all these animal agricultural practices, or else people will starve. That's what we are told. That, and it's the absolute opposite. Like, like now I tell people, you could feed 14 earths full of this many people if you just stopped eating, if you all turned vegan. So, and in Ayurveda, it's, if anything that's used as a medicine, the quantity that you take a pill, of anything, it's tiny. Like, if you were to use ghee as a medicine, you would use it if you were in a particular, if you were suffering from a particular disease, or if you were suffering from a particular condition, and the quantities of it would be ridiculously small. So that would not technically, in an ideal situation, if animals were just roaming about and they were not captured by us and used by us and exploited by us like this, that is not something that would harm them in the way that it's harming them now, or disbalance the the whole ecosystem the way that it's doing now. because so that's just when somebody's saying that okay, ghee is vital, and then running with it and feeding you ghee every day, that's just plain wrong, because that's not what the Ayurveda says. And people haven't read it and they don't understand, because it's in an ancient language that most people don't know or don't learn. And that's the thing that I think all traditional or cultural or even religious practices, they sort of are always warped and skewed by the people who are benefiting from it. I saw recently there's a temple near a parking lot in a market in my city, and there was a cow and her calf just tied up on tiny ropes in front of it, and the temple is deserted, and they're on a pavement. Uh, they have nothing comfortable to sit on. Their leash is so short they can't sit, they can't stand, and those people earn money by asking, for people to feed the cow, or donate for the cow, and that's how that they're exploiting it. And they're exploiting people's religious and cultural beliefs by saying that okay, cows are holy, and they never sort of let you see that they're not being treated in the way that is holy at all. In fact, in India, and also, yeah, so Ayurveda says that cow's ghee or cow's milk fat is good for certain conditions. And cow's milk can be beneficial in certain cases. But it does not say anywhere that you should drink buffalo's milk. But because cows are holy and the dairy industry needs to slaughter the animals that it takes the milk from, in India, most milk comes from buffaloes, and slaughtering buffaloes is legal everywhere. And there's this there's this trope that cows are our mother, and if you're drinking a buffalo's milk, why isn't she your mother, and why aren't you trying to save her? and like it's just we're just brainwashed into believing these people use these things against people by selling them stuff. Basically,
Right.
it's just all for profit. It's very exploitative to literally everybody. The consumer does not benefit. We are drinking something that is almost poisonous to us. We are consuming things that are making us deathly sick. People are dying from this constantly, from diseases caused by this, and it's just yeah, it's infuriating honestly. And
Yeah.
any excuse that people use, like in the Bible they say that okay, God told us to eat meat and I don't think Jesus Christ was the type of person who would be okay with animal exploitation in any way.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think there's a thread between every sort of religion or cultural, spiritual tradition about do no harm. I think that is sort of a common thing that we can find in your country. It's Ahimsa, and I'd like to talk about that. But personally, it feels like our ancestors. These teachings are magnificent, and it was miraculous, and it was 2,000 years ago or more,
Yes.
right? And we
Yes.
didn't have refrigeration, and we didn't, we didn't transport food around the world. I mean, it was a different reality and we need to evolve past it, right? And so I know that you
Exactly.
practice yoga, and I also practice yoga. It's a really important part of my daily routine and my life and my way of being in the world. And I
So great.
understand that yoga is not just exercise, right? There's so much more to it. And the one part that really attracted me, I was already vegan when I found yoga, and was the yamas and niyamas and ahimsa, especially ahimsa. I thought, oh, that totally fits with my veganism. Can you explain
Yeah.
for us what that leg of yoga or that branch of yoga is about?
Yeah, sure. So, ahimsa basically is the opposite of himsa, and himsa means violence. So, ahimsa literally means non-violence. And basically, the concept is that whatever harm that you do, it's all about karma, basically, is also like it sort of comes down to that. But ahimsa is basically do no harm. So, in any situation, they say that if somebody is hurting you, uh, don't resort to violence yourself, but step away from it, or turn the other cheek. So basically, because violence just and you being violent and somebody else being violent, it just multiplies and becomes worse and worse and involves a huge bunch of people. and everything turns violent. So ahimsa also has a lot to do with the vibrations, and so violence can be through words, violence can be through, so many things. It's not just physical violence, but violence happens in many, many ways. So basically ahimsa is the concept to avoid any harm, so that you can live in a peaceful environment, and that everything can be in sync and just peaceful. So the point is that don't do something to somebody else that you would not want to have done to you. And that's where karma also comes in, that karma is anything that you do. And karma is not limited to just action, but even thinking is karma. So thinking violent thoughts is also not really, something that benefits anybody. So it's actually causing us harm on so many levels, on mental levels, on cellular levels, that we don't really know what happens. Because at the end of the day, what is emotion? It's just hormones. Emotions are hormones. So the way I see it, that when we also kill an animal, the emotions that it is feeling are actually literal physical hormones that flow through its body as it is suffering and dying, and that has an actual literal chemical effect. And then when you're eating that, you're basically consuming all the pain and fear and death, quite literally, on a chemical level, honestly. So you are consuming that violence, basically. So it's not going to benefit you, it's only going to harm you. And that is why this uh, animal product that we get from pain and suffering also causes us harm. So ahimsa is basically, yeah, just causing least harm. And honestly, living itself as a human being, uh, who has the power to change his surroundings according to, we have the power to change our surroundings according to our preference, and that involves some level of harm anyway. So what is the least amount of harm that you can do? So honestly, anybody who believes in ahimsa should be vegan if they understand what it's all about. So this is really actually something that is in sync, because again, it boils down to the fact that we are all one and we are all connected. It's like we have so many microorganisms living inside us, and we ourselves as a planet can be thought of as microorganisms who are living on the planet. And we are all one unit. So if I'm harming you, I am at some level harming myself, which is true, because even when you see people who are violent and people who are criminals, when they are hurting somebody else, they do suffer some psychological damage themselves, they do suffer some pain themselves. And honestly, you can't hurt somebody else without hurting yourself. So that is the whole point of ahimsa, that we are all one, that to live truly peacefully and be happy and be blissful, we need to not cause violence as much as is practical and possible, of course. And by breathing, you consume so many microorganisms. You're constantly causing violence by stepping on insects and stuff. But that's a different thing. That is something you're doing unconsciously, and that's why so many sages would just sit on a rock and meditate and not move for years and years. So people have done that in our ancient cultures. And honestly, I feel like ours is one that has survived. But there were so many ancient cultures that believed in the same thing, that were destroyed by the Abrahamic religions that were trying to take over the world. And the world dominion was the main thing when all of this started. And those new religions were brought about to sort of take power away from people from different cultures, so that they could be ruled over. And then we forgot that everybody actually worships nature, which is what you should truly worship, because nature is mother and you can't live without it. So yeah, so
Right.
that's ahimsa. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, the pagans all around the world were mistreated, the witch burnings and everything.
Yes.
The women who knew how to work with herbs for healing.
Yes.
Yeah, well, and I think COVID is kind of the ultimate karma, you know. It,
Exactly.
it really, and it comes from it's directly the result of hurting animals and
Exactly.
and I don't know what we have to do to get people to understand that we're just not supposed to be doing that. Like the
I
whole
know.
a global pandemic is here to tell us we have to stop and change, right?
Yeah.
So I really want to get to your music and your product line. So Khadi, this wonderful fabric that you found, and it sounds like it's kind of like linen. Is it made from flax?
Little bit.
What's it made from?
It's made from cotton traditionally, and sometimes it's made of silk and wool also. So it has those three categories that it's made in traditionally, but mostly it's cotton. So yeah.
Okay, because silk
So
and wool aren't considered vegan, right?
no,
Yeah.
no.
So okay, so somehow you happened upon this fabric and then now you've fashioned it into a whole clothing line. That's brilliant.
Yeah, so actually, my mom studied fashion designing, but and she's a very good designer. But she didn't have much of a business sense, and she's a perfectionist. So she's very critical of the work that doesn't come out perfectly. And when you're making clothes, you sort of depend on other people also. It's not just like you sketch it and it comes to life. You have to have somebody who's going to stitch it, and you have to have somebody who's going to work on it. So when other people are involved, of course, quality control becomes a bit of an issue. So she did find it hard to sell and stuff. And while she would be working, I would play with the leftover fabric and drape stuff on my Barbie dolls and and make clothes for them without stitching. I would just drape. I didn't know how to stitch. I still don't really. I just know the basics. But yeah, and then from a very young age, I was exposed to various kinds of fabrics, and my mom was always really fond of natural fabrics like cotton and handloom. And so I knew what good fabric felt like just instinctively. I never liked polyester and other and plasticky fabrics. So when I came into contact with khadi, when I touched this fabric, I was like, this is the best thing I've ever touched. This is the nicest fabric I've ever seen. And it was lying there in a government building, collecting dust and fungus and expensive fabric. It's not even cheap, but it has this image of being either boring or something that only politicians wear. So I thought it deserves so much more. When I walk into a khadi store, it's smelling like a toilet. Sometimes it's got disinterested salespeople who are just government employees who don't really care about the fabric, and they're like, okay, if you want to buy something, buy it, or else go away. And they just I thought that why? I mean, it deserves so much more. And I felt like if the younger generation doesn't get to experience khadi the way it should be or the way it could be, this, like so many other things, will just slowly die out. And these arts and crafts to me are very important, and because these traditional arts and crafts and fabrics have so much potential for generating employment at levels that it's truly needed. So I felt like I wanted to do something with it. So I just bought some that I liked. I started designing clothes that I would like to wear, or clothes that younger people would like to wear. I made dresses and shorts and jumpsuits and even swimwear, and it was pretty well received by those who were able to try it on and and see it and touch it and feel it and wear it. And I was very particular about the fit. I have my own stitching unit that's behind me, so that's where I used to get stuff made. And I would make my tailors open it if I didn't like something and redo it properly. And I was very particular that it should be flattering to all types of body shapes and sizes, and that it should look good when you wear it. So, and I thought, okay, I'll just make a website and I'll sell through that and it'll be easy. But nothing really is easy. And even building the website was a challenge because I was robbed by a few people who took money from me and didn't make the website. And they said that we have to have an advance to start. And so many. And then by the end of it, my partner and I, we got sick of it. So he designed the website and I made all the creatives. And that was our first website. Now we're on the third version of our website, and we did it on that platform called Wix. I think there's
Okay.
a platform that helps you make websites.
And
And
then are you shipping your clothing around the world now or
yeah,
yeah?
I mean that is an option,
Yeah.
and we've gotten one or two orders. one from Russia and one from somewhere in the States. But again, it's not doing supremely well because again, selling online or selling at all is pretty hard. I think
Right.
it's a skill in itself. So I sort of stopped production. I thought, okay, let me first focus on selling and stop making stuff that I'm not able to sell. I'm more of a creator type person. I need to partner with somebody who's better at selling. So we realized that these on-ground exhibitions used to happen, and the Khadi board here, the government authority that sort of oversees everything that to do with Khadi, they help people like me who are working with Khadi by allowing us to take part in those exhibitions for free. So all you have to do is give the travel cost and the living cost over there, and you can go and put up a stall for free. So we would go to these exhibitions, and there the response would be amazing because people could actually touch it, feel it, wear it. And also it's more on the expensive side because it is a hand spun, hand woven fabric, and I can't produce in bulk. So if I want to make 1,000 pieces of something, I would have to first order an NGO that makes that fabric in advance and give them some notice, and then procure it from there, and then start stitching it and designing it and all of that.
Wow.
So it's sort of a niche product in a niche market. So so we got very good responses in on ground exhibitions, and that's when we decided to do our own, and that's how Vegan Fest became something that we started doing, because I thought that in this exhibition we'll have only vegan food. So we started also calling it Vegan Fest, and we said, okay, let's not have any other unsustainable products in here and any other animal products. So let's just make it a Vegan Fest. So Vegan Fest and L0 Store uh, are now hand in hand two projects that I'm working on, and I'm really
Well,
enjoying it.
cool. And it's l0.com, I think, right? And
L0store.com. Yes.
l0store.com. Okay, and then the music. So this is the really exciting part for me, I think, because I've heard some of your music. In fact, I played The Cost of Cruelty on my radio program already once.
So cool.
And
Yes.
it's beautiful. So you wrote the lyrics for that.
Yeah.
And how did
So
okay, so first of all, how did you and Aaron connect? And I think you were sort of helped create Vox Vegana, right?
no. He actually
No.
created Vox Vegana,
Okay.
and so when I turned vegan, I'm a recent vegan. I turned vegan in 2019 December. So I started looking for vegans around me in my own city. So I joined a lot of vegan groups, and then I started looking for more vegans all around the world, and I started joining all these other vegan groups. And Aaron had started this group called Vox Vegana, and I have always loved music, and a cappella and harmony are some of my favorite things. Like, and I haven't been able to find other singers to sing with me and harmonize. So this is something I hadn't done in ages. So I was really like, looking for somebody who was, making music and was vegan and was interested in making vegan music, because I've been writing songs since I was 13. And the first song I ever wrote was about the planet. So it was called Save the Earth. It was let the water be pure, let the oxygen be more, let the trees on all the barren lands grow. So this is something I've always wanted to do, and I always like writing meaningful lyrics that mean something to me, that will have an impact. Because in pop music that I heard, I would just be really disappointed that the only thing anybody ever sang about was either romance or boys or money, and that's it. It's as if that's the only thing that exists. And for me, this was so boring because there's so much more to life. So I would write about spirituality, and I would write about nature, and I would write about just even abstract stuff, and I would really enjoy it. And a lot of my songs are about creative inspiration and activism and veganism also. So that's why, and it sort of flows. Like the Cost of Cruelty was a poem that sort of fell into my head. It feels like that because it sort of writes itself. It's just something, a voice in my head starts saying something, and I start writing it. And I think my best work comes from this other place. I think it just falls into my head. I don't feel like I have created it. I feel like I have been the lucky medium of something that is beautiful and meaningful. So that's how I write. Yeah, so Vox Vegana was a very funny story. So I came across this group, Vox Vegana, and I joined it. And then I filled up the form, and then I read somewhere that this is for people who are living in the States, in Washington, Seattle. So I said, oh, but I'm in a different country. So it had the option of taking back your form, or saying that, okay, I no longer want to be part of it. So I checked that okay, I no longer want to be part of it, and I forgot about it. And then Aaron messaged me and was like, "Hi, do you not want to be part of this anymore?" I was like, "No, no, I'm on a different continent, so I don't think I'll be able to meet up with you guys and sing. And honestly, I love that what you're doing." So he said, "No, that's all right. Just join anyway." It was such a crazy coincidence meeting him at all. Or what are the chances that I would see it and then take it back? What are the chances that I'd find that group at all? Or the chances of him bothering to ask me why I left. So if he hadn't asked me, we would never have spoken. So yeah, and then I just said, okay, hi, I love what you're doing, and let's keep sharing each other's work. And he was like, yeah, please join the group again, and no, we'll collaborate long distance somehow or whatever. Just be part of it. So I was like, okay, that's great. And then I joined the group, and then anything that I wrote that was related to veganism, I would just share with whomsoever I, opinion I respected, because I wanted a good critical, evaluation of my work. So I would just send him stuff, and it was like mutual admiration. I loved his work, he loved my work, and it was really cool. So he asked me, "Can I compose this for you?" I was like, "Yeah, please." So he did it, and he's like, "Oh, maybe you should sing it too." And I was like, "Okay, I'll try." I have a home studio. I have a tiny Rode mic that I love, and I have a small sound card, and I have some friends who live nearby who do music production, and we also dabble, my partner and I, in music production a little bit. So I just recorded it and I sent it, and it happened.
It's
It was great.
beautiful. It's wonderful. And then
Yeah.
you're currently working on something, I think, that has to do with children. Is that right?
Oh yeah. So again, all Aaron's idea. So he wanted to make a musical that is about veganism for a younger audience, something that children could watch with their parents. And honestly, writing a musical has been one of my secret dreams, and performing it on Broadway has been my secret dream. And honestly, there are very few opportunities in the town that I am in to be trained for stuff like this. There were not really many vocal classes for Western music, and somehow I was always more interested in Western music because I didn't like what I heard in Bollywood. Again, all only about romance, all, and musically I didn't really love that style. In fact, later I discovered the Dhrupad music, which is a branch of Indian music, which is wonderfully beautiful, and that has only spiritual music. So that's something that's more my speed, more stuff. That's something that I love. So I really enjoy Drupad music. But yeah, so I always wanted to write a musical. I did some songs that would be good in a musical already. So when Aaron told me that he wanted to write a musical, I was like, any help that I can give you, I will do that. So I've written a few characters, and I've written a few scenes. And I told them that, okay, whenever you need a particular song on a particular topic, let me know, and I'll make time and do it. And I've actually been hosting vegan events since 1st November, monthly vegan events, since World Vegan Day. Because, like I was telling you, I wanted to host a fair where a vegan fest. So a 4 day, it was supposed to be a 4 day festival, and we had planned it in March 2020. But because of the pandemic, it sort of got indefinitely postponed. So when restrictions started lifting, I started doing small invite-only events just to raise awareness, because there's no vegan cafe even in my city.
Oh,
There's very little awareness. So we did these little events and called people, and the response was great. We would have quizzes. I'd sing the music that I made about veganism live, and we'd have a great vegan brunch or a high tea, and we'd show them vegan movies. So this is something that we've been doing. So and I've sort of given myself the challenge of doing monthly events. So I've been going mad because the moment that one event ends, we have to start planning the next one. And the upcoming one in February is a bigger one. It's a 2-day event, and we've booked one of the most expensive and exclusive places in the city. And we're calling other vegan brands to come and put up stalls and have live music and a fashion show. And yeah, there's just too much going on. So in the middle of it all, I was like, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, but I definitely want to be part of this musical. So whenever you need something written, just let me know. So they would just tell me, okay, we have this scene to do, and maybe you can do this part. And in the middle of meetings in the car, I would sit and write on my phone and share it with them. And it's such a fun process, honestly, because we're working with Aaron, and Mary is on the working team. And I just love their work, honestly. So it's a lot of fun.
I'm looking forward to hearing it. Yeah. And
Yeah.
okay, so these events that you're organizing, like there's no
Mhm.
way we are organizing events here. I'm in Western Canada, just north of
Yeah.
where Aaron is in Seattle, and I don't think they're doing any organizing either. We're so you guys are you're actually able to gather in small groups then, hey?
Yeah, yeah, because honestly, people had been roaming about anyway. Uh, and once the lockdown was over, everybody sort of just went back to their almost normal lives.
Wow.
Many offices insist that you come, and many people have actually gone back to work. And you're allowed to gather 200 people in one place at a time. So, and I thought that, okay, if everybody's gathering anyway, why not make something that, during the pandemic, explain to them that that's where it came from, this is why you were inconvenienced, learn about animal agriculture and its devastating effects on every aspect of human life and animal life and the planet. And instead of, just gadding about and going to clubs, like yesterday, we were at the mall and we saw everybody was clubbing, and because again it's Valentine's Day and Valentine's week, so it's just you know things are back to normal. So I thought, okay, if you're going to be out and about, come and learn something that's useful. Come and learn something that will prevent future pandemics, and let's have fun while doing it. Because although I would love to just shake people and say this is wrong on every level, that's not something that works. So I try to use facts and my creativity to put the point across, and that's the point
Cool.
of these. And
Cool.
oh, I also yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you have help doing all of this and whatever you were going to say there. Sorry
Yeah,
to
yeah,
interrupt.
no, no. So, yeah, so my partner and I started it with the first one. Then we had a friend who joined us, who also lives nearby and is also vegan. Uh, and uh, and basically, we asked for some interns to come and help. And we've been very lucky that we have some lovely people who've come and joined us and are helping out with this. So yeah, I have some help. We are currently raising sponsors and looking for funds to continue doing this work, and we're doing it. We're working hard at it, and we're able to break even. And the first event was a bit of a loss. The next one was a little better, and it's going along. We have some good hope for this one.
Good for you.
So
That's a lot of work. I appreciate that. And are you
mm,
feeding people? I think it's fairly easy to veganize Indian food for the most part, isn't it? To make vegan similar food to
yeah,
what your
yeah,
traditional
it's very
food is, but just make it vegan.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very easy because we do eat a lot of vegetables, we eat a lot of lentils, we eat a lot of grain. So rice and wheat, and the staple is dal, chawal, roti, sabji, which is basically lentils and rice and flatbreads and vegetables. So
Right.
that is a basic Indian meal, and it's pretty easy to veganize it. All you have to do is skip on the ghee and instead use oil if you want, or don't use it. It doesn't really matter. Honestly, I've made oil-free food which tastes just as good. I've made food without using oil also that tastes good. I mean, honestly, it's about knowing what spices to use,
Spices.
what combinations work with what type of cuisine. And there are some common links that are there, like pepper tastes good in almost everything. So if you're making Italian, use pepper. If you're making Indian, use pepper. If you're making Chinese, use pepper. If you're using Thai, if you use pepper. It just tastes good in everything. And then that you just have to know what certain set of spices taste good with whatever type of food.
Right.
So yeah, that's
Cool.
about it.
It's all about spices. Okay, we've just got a couple of minutes left. I'd like to know what's going on with this farmers strike in India. They say it's the largest strike of workers across any sector, any time in human history. We've had
Yes.
very little media about it. What's
Yes.
going on with it? What's it all about?
Yeah, so basically in September, the government passed three bills that are basically there to allow farmers a little more freedom to basically trade with whomsoever they want. And there are three laws basically, and I read them actually recently, and to try and understand what it was all about. And when you read the laws, they honestly, on face value, they seem perfectly fine. And when I watched interviews of farmers, they were concerned about the government removing the minimum sale price and not buying from the farmers at a minimum sale price. But the three new laws have nothing to do with that. So I'm a little surprised that farmers are protesting that. But then I sort of realized that they don't really know or understand what those laws are. It's more of a communication issue also at some level, lack of understanding and instigation from other political parties also to to protest and to it's become this sort of thing that everybody is not very sure as to why it is happening, but they want to support the farmers and they want to you know just and honestly it's very confusing because when you read the laws, they're perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with them. And when you listen to the farmers, they're like, okay, don't remove MSP, which is which is how the government buys from. So it's like if you have a crop which is surplus or which you are not able to sell, there is a minimum sale price which the government will give you and buy the crop from you. So people who are growing wheat and rice mostly in the Punjab area up north, they benefit from it a lot, and also their government benefits from it because the government takes a 6% cut of whatever the farmers get from the government. So when the government buys it, sometimes why it wants to not give that in writing apparently is because sometimes they have a surplus more than is required and that grain sort of goes to waste. So basically they're trying to make a change that will enable farmers more freedom actually to sell to whomsoever wants their product also, and also have the system that is already there. They're not abolishing the system that's already there, but there's a lot of lack of communication, there's a lot of incitement from people. And honestly, I mean, from what I can tell, it's motivated by politics. A lot of it is, and a lot of it is. See, you have to understand that India has a humongous population, and a lot of it is farmers. So even though there are a lot of farmers protesting, the farmers that are protesting are only 5 to 10% of farmers. There are other farmers that are okay with it and have. So it's just, I think, something that the government has to communicate clearly and openly with them, which it is not doing for some reason, which I find very strange, because what they're doing is not honestly harming them. And they tried to, I think, sit down and have talks with them and say that, okay, we'll make certain amendments to ensure that you are comfortable with this. But the farmers said that, no, 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 we don't want you to amend it. We just want you to take all three bills away and just repeal those laws. And the government is like, but they're for your benefit, so we don't want to repeal those laws, because they've been trying for ages and ages to bring about a positive change for this. So what was happening up till now was that the farmers were only allowed to sell through a certain group of people, and they had formed a cartel of sorts, and there was a gray market going on, and there was a lot of monopoly in that system and a lot of corruption in that system. and there was that those middlemen would control the prices of the prices at which they would buy from the farmers also, and the prices at which they would sell also to the consumers. So, and they would pocket a lot of the money that was in the middle. So they were basically trying to get rid of this system also, so that farmers had more freedom. And but the farmers are scared that if they deal directly with private companies, then the private companies will completely, take over and maybe snatch away the land somehow. And although the government has made sure that no, there is no possibility of snatching away the land, it's a lot of lack of communication. Everybody is really angry. Nobody's listening to each other, and it's just it's very sad uh, and it all stems from a lack of awareness and education and communication, honestly.
Right. And so this is coming from the Modi government, these
Yeah,
laws. Yeah. So
but
so
they
it
were
sounds
proposed
like
by the but they were actually proposed by the opposition party initially, and they were
okay,
just shelved. But the Modi government implemented them.
interesting.
So
So it sounds
yeah,
like on one level that the farmers have been able to sell to the government and they've been guaranteed that, and maybe they're afraid that that part of it, they're not going to have a guaranteed market. They're throwing it open to a free market to private
yes,
corporations, which okay, I see.
yes,
Well, I'm going to have to get
that's
more
it.
information on that, I guess. But so
Yeah,
so then is
yeah.
there anything else that you want to say before we go, Disha?
Oh yeah. So I'm working on some on some vegan parodies of popular songs. So I did one of Another Brick in the Wall, for which Aaron also helped me, and Dan, this amazing musician from Belgium, he also helped us with the production and the music and everything. So I'm planning on making a series of vegan parodies of popular songs, and I'd love to have vegans from all over the world to be part of it. So if anybody wants to send me video snippets of them, I can, forward a tiny script that they can do and just be part of the music videos if they want. And yeah, I'll share those with you also.
Okay, yeah, I would like to add a website or two where people can find you. Is it mostly on Facebook? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I lost you in the middle. You'd
Okay.
actually like to add a website.
Yeah, just where can people contact you?
Oh yeah. So I'll send you the links to my website, to Vegan Fest also, and to L Zero Store also,
Okay.
and my social media links, of course, on Instagram and Facebook. I'm more active on Instagram nowadays because yeah, I have to be. Honestly, I'm not really good with social media in general because I don't really think I have time, but it's something I have to do as part of my events and stuff to get the word out there. So that's why the interns help. They make lovely stories of what's happening and they post occasionally. So we're
Okay.
going to be posting more regularly now and just, yes,
Cool.
raise
Well,
awareness.
I really want to thank you for all that you're doing for the animals, and I hope that you find lots of new vegans in Bhopal. I want to hear. I'm going to look forward to the day when we hear that Bhopal has vegan restaurants everywhere.
Yes, thank you so much. That's my dream.
Okay.
I'm actually talking to somebody about starting the first one. So he's one of our sponsors who supports. He has a company called Bionutrients, and they make lovely soy products that are world class. Actually, they make wonderful soy products, and we're trying to work with him to start the first vegan restaurant in Bhopal. So that will be really nice.
So exciting. That's awesome. Thank you
Yes.
so much. It's great.
Thank you for having me.